Melanated family,
Yeah.
welcome to a brand new episode of the Melanated Convo podcast, the Thursday version, the news oriented version, the Black woman perspective version, right? I do this thing purposely with me and Sonia, who is the co-host of my Thursday show. When we first started doing this, I understand the necessary aspect from all of us. Like black men, as a black man, I have a hell of a perspective about our people and what we've been through. But you will be a fool if you didn't listen to your woman, right? The right woman. But
Right.
we got to listen to our women. So today on the show with me, my Thursday show, I have my sister Sonia Williams Lewis, a scribe, educational consulting creator. How you doing today, sis?
I am good. I'm glad, this calms me. Having these conversations are super important. These calm me. This is the calm before the storm. Um, Tomorrow's Friday. Y'all get a
Mm-hmm.
break.
Yep.
We have to think about things in perspective of we get to do it all over again. Some people didn't make it
Yep.
this week. And so we get an
Yep.
opportunity to impact somebody else tomorrow. So
Yes. And Sonia, I have people reach out to me about the things we talk about. And it's always interesting, right? Because I have at times young people. I have a 19-year-old brother I've been talking to. I'm gonna call him again tonight because he just reached
mhm.
out to me again. But this young brother is so motivated by information,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes people get caught in the quantity of people listening because
Yeah.
what we do, what this is about, is going to be very, very big. But
Right.
the thing is, you got to impact people. So in actuality, if 5 people listen and
Right.
change their life, or decide they want to help black folks, or decide they tired of
Yep.
how they being treated, then we did our
We did
job.
some,
So
yeah.
I'm so blessed to be in the position I'm in, y'all. This is your brother
Yeah.
Harrison, Melanated Convo podcast. Like it, subscribe, digital listeners. Keep keep listening.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get caught up in watching myself on camera and knowing it has to look a certain way. But y'all in y'all car,
Right.
y'all in positions where you can't really view what we doing. So I'm gonna do a better job of being as visual as possible. I'm gonna slow down as much as I can
Yeah.
because I'm getting feedback from people and they love our message, Sonia, like so
Yeah.
many other black folks in our society who've decided, because it's all a decision, to speak truth to power.
Yeah.
You feel me? So we're gonna keep doing this. Like, subscribe, become a member of the family today. Today on the show, the big thing we are going to discuss is the brother Tyre Nichols
Yeah.
in Memphis, which, to my understanding, he actually is from
He's from
Sacramento.
Sacramento, California.
From Sacramento, so it hits
Yeah.
home to a degree. So we're going to spend
Yes.
some time on that to discuss that situation. But we got a couple of other news stories we're going to touch on real quickly just to get the family going. So I'm happy to be here with y'all, man. Let's get it popping.
Let's get it
Now,
going.
Sonia, I seen the video. I shared it with everybody. In Richmond, California, a few days ago, a substitute teacher, and we're just going off of the video we've actually been able to see,
Right.
a substitute teacher had an argument with a student. During this argument, it seems as if the student, because they said racial slurs were included. So maybe the student called him a nigger. I'm not sure how he framed it, right? But we see this interaction between this substitute teacher and this student that ended with the substitute teacher slamming him to the ground, physically removing him from the classroom.
Yeah.
Now, being a teacher of 20 some odd years yourself, when you see this type of interaction between student and teacher, what do you think?
It's inappropriate. It's
Hmm.
100% inappropriate. I liken it to coach and athlete. I liken it to a certain degree, that child that's in your neighborhood, and you're an adult, and you're supposed to have a little bit more wherewithal to not engage a child in that way. Now, it would be something totally different had this child physically attacked
Hmm.
you
Okay.
as a first line of defense. I can tell you firsthand that I've been put in so many situations as a teacher where, one, I didn't have a fear of my students, right? Two, if there was a fight on my corridor and I had physical ability to get in between two bodies, I put my body in harm's way.
Hmm.
And granted, I've had principals and other teachers be like, why would you ever do that? My husband has said, please don't ever do that. I can remember breaking up a fight between two football players at Kennedy High School. Both of them were over 6 foot tall, both of them easily 300 pounds. And I just kept on, I grabbed his face and I said, look me in the eye. Focus on my voice. Look me in the eye. Don't look at him. And that calmed him. And then somebody else was able to get the, security finally came.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I didn't have a fear. I don't know. I'm weird. But what I also know is that young people, especially today, are hurting to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to repeat that. Young people are hurting to be heard. And so I don't know what the level of disrespect that this young man was exhibiting in the classroom, but I also saw another news report from the superintendent of school there. And I'm from the Bay Area, and I'm familiar with a lot of educators in the Bay Area. And I trust that they did a thorough investigation. They found that legitimately the young man did call the teacher the N-word, and they have promised that this student will also receive some repercussions. But I have to go back to my first initial response in that it's inappropriate for an adult to put their hands on somebody else's child in a manner that is that aggressive. Now, again, I say a caveat here. Caveat is if somebody put their hands on me first, where I feel like I have to defend myself. Because the Oakland chick in me, the Meadowview chick in me is going to be, I might black out. I don't know. I will also
if you touch, you're right.
I will also tell you, Harrison, that I've taught at continuation schools, and I have had gangbangers and drug dealers and pimps be like, I wish you would touch her. Like, I will beat you for her. Right? Because I built that kind of relationship in my class where my students trusted me, that they wanted to see me safely get home to my children and my family at night. That's the refreshing part for me, that I know that I wouldn't have had to be put in that situation, because somebody in my classroom would have got up and checked homeboy with the quickness. You don't talk to her like that.
Well, Sonia, are we looking at a difference between, because to me, like a police officer, like we're going to talk about later,
right,
going in this type of profession where you're helping people, in the emotional stability of the person in front of you matters, and it could be life or death at times.
Right.
When we looking at school systems who hire subs, because I know regular teachers have problems with students, yes, but is there a different kind of process when you're getting a substitute teacher? Is this someone who may not be on the same level as a regular teacher? Because my son had an issue with a substitute teacher as well before.
And I say yes. So there's a lower standard of credentialing for substitute teachers. They don't have to be fully credentialed. You just have to have a degree for most school districts and a clean background record. And so you can be hired to substitute in any subject and not even know anything about that subject.
Wait, whoa. Wait. So I can have a degree in education and never taught history or know anything about history, and I can be a sub in a history class.
Yes. Yes.
That's why we treat
at the end of the day, here's the thing. At the end of the day, the teacher that's assigned to that class has a due diligence. Now, there are emergencies when you can't put together lesson plans for substitute teachers. And so subs, if they're good, and because I was a good sub. When my first year, when I got out of teaching credential program, I was like, oh, I'm a sub to see what district I wanted to be at, to feel the culture and the climate of the organizations. And so I subbed in like 5 districts one year. And I was just like, I would get called back. And it didn't matter the subject. Of course, I wanted to be called for a history class, but it didn't matter the subject, because if you are worth your weight in gold, being a professional, being educated, you can read ahead a chapter. Like, really, I'm don't put me in a chemistry class. Don't put me in today. Like, the last time I took calculus was when I was in college. Don't put me in a calculus class today, because that's really going to cause me to have to go to the back of my brain and wipe away some cobwebs. But if you are worth your weight as a professional who wants to be in the field of education, you should be able to read ahead a chapter, see where students are. And if it's just a day assignment, like having educational activities in your bag ready to go that may not be in line with that subject, you are still a good suit for coming in as a sub in a classroom.
Oh, so that makes sense. It's everything is relating back to having a certain level of care, like
Yes.
understanding the assignment
Yes.
and putting everything into it. It seems like, because I'm learning this, because my wife, she's like a perfectionist, and she like gives her all in any little thing she's doing, right? So
Mhm.
it gets frustrating when, in my mind, the situation doesn't call for it. But
Right.
in general, that ideology is powerful. Like, if you approach things a certain way,
Right.
you can affect the outcome, even if
Absolutely.
things happen and pieces move. Because when I look at
Absolutely.
this sub, you're antagonizing the young man.
Yeah.
He frequently told the young man, say it again, say it again. He eventually put his hands on him. So, me and my family was talking about it. If I'm the parent of this young man who had to witness my son getting manhandled by an adult, shit gonna have to happen.
Right.
Something gonna have to take place. So I don't know if this dude was thinking about that clearly. But
Right.
another thing I want to touch on with you, Sonia, we do understand, no, there's no excuse for putting your hands on a child in the
Right.
classroom. There should be several steps before that
Absolutely.
happens. But what do we say about the disrespectful child, like
Yeah.
the different generation of children who go to school or go to places where adults are
Hmm.
and have absolutely no respect for who's around them?
Yeah. And this could be anywhere, right? Because this could
Yes.
be in the grocery store. This can be at the bowling alley. Like, I call kids out, and I don't have a problem calling kids out. I'd be like, would you say that in front of your grandma? Like, I'm somebody's grandma. I
Mm,
need you to respect the eyes and ears of people who don't want to hear the bull crap that's coming out your mouth.
mhm.
I tell young men all the time, I don't want to see your underwear. I tell little girls that your chi should not be showing for the whole world. I mean, so I feel as though the village has kind of also lost their way, that has allowed for children to lose their way. They
Mm,
don't know a level of respect because the village hasn't protected them. The
yeah,
village hasn't given them a sense of safety. So if the village doesn't care about me, why do I care about the village? On top of the fact that the village and the global perspective, from a global perspective, is telling me that I might not make it past 22. So
yeah,
what am I living for? And a
yeah.
lot of kids have that mentality. Like, if I make it past 22, I'm old. I really didn't made it, right?
Mhm.
I will also say that there's a level of professionalism that comes in, like you said, with respects to law enforcement, right? I have been, I've been in these streets doing social justice work, and I can't tell you the number of cops that I've cussed out in their face and been like, I wish you would touch me, because you got to be professional today. I want you to catch this on body cam. You blah, 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 blah. And I'm not saying it in a way that, yeah, probably were we antagonistic? Absolutely. Absolutely. I want to see you lose it, right?
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, it's proving the point that if you lose it while on the job, why am I, as a tax-paying dollar, paying you?
Yes, definitely, definitely. So I hate to see that. And to speak to the point you made about the kids having no respect, I think when we all came from the South, when we
Yeah,
all migrated here, decade after decade, it's continually gotten worse. The
yeah,
system has put things on autopilot that a lot of us participate in.
yeah.
We have to admit that. But the age difference, Sonia, I'm seeing, and I'm a part of this. I'm mentioning this because I'm 42 years old
Mhm.
and I have 6 grandchildren. Now
Right,
let's break it down. To me, there's a specific reason why I started off having children at a really young age, and
right,
when I had my children, there was different type of structures that wasn't in place. There
right,
was things that I was doing early on that
right.
may be regrettable now. So this created a small cycle. So my kids have children when they're
Yeah,
young. See,
yeah,
so I'm 42, but I'm of the ilk where, and I make a joke about this, call me grandpa. See,
right,
I need to be called grandpa because
yeah.
I need to be reminded that I have
Reminded, right,
11 people who are relying on me to provide them some type of legacy. If you
right,
called me Paw Paw or H Paw or something, I may feel a little too cool and relax.
right, right,
Yeah,
right, right.
I don't need to relax because in our time, like, I don't want to get old, but Our
Yeah.
grandmas was 60 something.
Yeah.
And what this means is they were seasoned adults.
Absolutely.
We got some grandparents, 30 something, early 40s, who don't understand the weight of their responsibility. So
Absolutely.
they twerking with their granddaughter.
Right.
This is a recipe for disaster, because I
Disaster.
understand the mistakes I made and the road I took that, that was a little more difficult, but I have to circumvent that. Like I have to double
Yeah.
back and say, no, I'm not an old man,
Yeah.
but I gotta treat everything like I'm responsible. I'm the head of all these people, whether
Yeah.
I want to be or not.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So
No,
some of our people
that's
don't realize that.
legit. And there's some outside things that have perpetuated that as well. So when we talk about the Black community, we also have to talk about poverty. When we talk about poverty, we have to talk about why the Black male was always put out of the household. When we talk about poverty, we have to talk about why Black women were ushered into a welfare system and then told that they men couldn't be at home. And if they men can't be at home, that means that they're not active participants in their children's lives. All of these things are layered on layered on layer, and don't get too much of a high paying job, because you're going to then be paying out the YUZ child support or spousal support, when all at the beginning, a lot of people just wanted to be together and the system said that you couldn't, right? And so we're talking about, this is like 1960s and afters. Then you add on the layer of, the war on drugs and the dumping of, let's be intentional about what the facts are, the dumping of crack cocaine, the dumping of heroin, the dumping of marijuana in Black communities, the dumping of guns and weapons in the Black community. And then you say, oh, look at these savages out there. No, America was violent. Africans adapted to this violence. We are not inherently violent, and a part of me will fight you if you ever try to convince me that Africans in the diaspora of this world have a violent nature. No, they have a survival nature, and sometimes survival means I have to protect myself. But to inherently be violent, that's just not us. Because if it were, we would have got some get back. And I remind people that all the time, that y'all done took the men out of our homes, and women have had to be tough. Black women have had to be hard. Black women have had to be vulnerable, right? Black women have had to fight men.
Oh, come on now, Sonia. And so I'm thinking, and that's why I love that you are such a proponent of history like myself. I'm of the belief that if we learn all of this, the young Black folks, the parents that you 20 something, early 20s, 30s, you didn't have a good mom or a good dad, sure. But maybe if you learn how all of this came about, you won't internalize it. And then you'll want to do something about it, because even though this is our history, we have to make some changes. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So, I mean, with respects to this teacher, I am, like I said, it's one of those things that it should not have happened that way, right? There were definitely some resources that an adult should be able to rely on to solve that kind of issue without putting their hands on. I will tell you that I've come close, almost been in the classroom for 20 years. I've come close to wanting to put my hand on a child. I have snatched a collar or two, right? But put my hands on in a manner of wanting to hurt a child, that has never been. I even had a little Hispanic boy over at Jackman Middle School in Elk Grove one year that I taught, and I was big and pregnant, and I pushed him. I was like, I told you 5 times, get out my classroom. And I opened the door, and I held the door with my foot, and I pushed him out the door. This little boy went home and told his mama that I hit him. And his mama came up there, and his mama was a norteño, and I was like, well, let me call my cousin Pookie. Because I was a little bit scared and intimidated by this norteño coming up in here. She was, like, she had her claw. I know she was wanting to whip my. And so I had to describe to her how I gently pushed him out the door after 5 times of saying, get out my class. Again, that goes back to What are the levels of response up to a point where you feel like you're so incredibly fed up? I
Mhm.
don't know that I've ever been called the N word to my face, but I'm positive that I've been called the N word behind my back. I taught in Folsom Cordova when I was a substitute teacher for that year, and I had students as a sub who would leave me notes on this desk when I was teaching at Rancho Cordova High School, and I was subbing for a government teacher, and these kids, all white, would leave me notes on the desk and be like, "Nigger B, don't come back here," and all kind of stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
But it was a few of those white kids in there because and see, I am antagonistic and a little just lightweight petty. I would open up the letter and I would read them in every one of my classes and be like, y'all need to check y'all classmates because one of y'all's mamas and daddies or grandmas and grandpa is teaching kids how to be racist. And
That's
that was my defense mechanism.
that's gangster right there. So I'm not gonna lie, I fuck with that.
That was my defense mechanism, right? Like, I'm gonna show y'all who y'all truly are
There
because
you
this is
go.
what you're leaving on this desk for me.
Hmm.
Yeah,
We have to be cognizant of all this. You know what I mean? So,
absolutely.
so because they said that student is facing disciplinary actions
Yes,
as well
yes,
because of what he said, and hopefully it get right. But adults, black people, for just specifically, if you want to work with children, if you want to protect people, if your
yeah,
job is protecting people, taking care of people, looking after people,
yeah,
there's a higher level of responsibility that comes with that. I know we all have bad days, but there's like a code of conduct that you should
yeah,
abide by. You know what I mean? Like my wife
absolutely.
being in the funeral industry, she has like a there's like a code she abides by. Like
Yeah,
certain things she won't do with deceased people, certain things she won't say. Certain,
yeah,
I think professionals need to kind of take that as a prideful thing that I'm going to
yes.
look after everybody. I'm going to be as empathetic as possible because I'm not working at Verizon or McDonald's. You know what I
Same
mean?
level of care, same level of care. Here's the tripped out part about this story that's very interesting is that the students at Richmond High are protesting in support of the teacher.
Yep.
Because so many of the black students, one, have experienced white students in their microaggressions and their racist
Oh.
behaviors, and
Hmm.
so they did a walkout on behalf of this teacher that was fired, which I get and I 100% support.
Hmm.
And even the superintendent said we need to listen to the voices of young people because they are not being heard, particularly, and he's a black man who's the superintendent there. He said particularly black students, particularly black female students. He was very intentional. He said,
Hmm.
and likewise, black parents need to be heard and black staff need to be heard, black teachers need to be heard, because one of the things that we know, we deal with these things on a regular basis, and sometimes they get swept under the rug and no one is coming to save us. No one is coming to be like, oh, it's gonna be okay. No, that's not
Hmm.
happening on behalf of black bodies, black lives. Our
Ah.
psyche is being traumatized on a regular basis because people get away with this kind of thing.
And so, wow, perspective
Yeah.
is golden. So, thinking about this brother, what he did was wrong,
Yeah.
but this could have been the seventh time. He could
Right.
have said, "Man, I'm trying to get into teaching. I'm gonna go ahead and take this sub job. But if one of these students call me a
Right.
nigga
One more time.
again, you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's important, and that's leading me to my next story. But that's important because as parents or adults, sometimes, and I've been guilty of this, we
Mhm.
neglect the word of a child.
Yeah.
You say, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
That you're putting
That
too
didn't
much on it.
happen.
See?
That teacher don't why would that teacher just not like you?
See?
I'm
Come on
guilty
now.
of it. I'm guilty of it.
Yeah.
And I've been in a profession and I done told my boys, you lying. That teacher ain't thinking about you like that.
See, and you have to,
And
we
I
have
had
to,
to see it for myself. And I was
yep.
like, you don't like my baby, huh?
But we have to be aware. This,
Yeah.
because this last thing I'll say about this is the teachable moment for that kid's parents.
Yes.
Because if you don't like Negroes and you 13, I gotta put that on your parents.
Woo! Right?
Society taught you a little bit, but your house is teaching you more. You feel me? So
Absolutely.
next
Racism
story we're
is
gonna
not
move on
born,
to.
it is taught.
There we go. So next story we're gonna get on to. And
Yeah.
this is again, everybody, this is your brother Harrison, Melanated Convo podcast. If you're just joining us, me and my sister Sonia Williams Lewis, we're gonna get to the Tyre Nichols situation, the brother killed by 5 black men in Memphis. We're gonna get to that in a second. But first things first, Ed
Yeah.
Reed, NFL Hall of Famer, got a head football coaching job at Bethune-Cookman. I think they're in
Yeah,
Florida, Daytona
they're in
Beach, Florida.
Florida. Yeah.
He got the coaching job. And when he got the job, now before contract negotiations were sealed, he got there and expressed what he saw when he got there. Sonia, he's seen unclean conditions.
Yeah.
He's seen an environment not fit to coach or motivate children. So, it seems like the administration seen what he had to say, eventually parted ways with him. But to me, this brings up a bigger conversation, Sonia, about HBCUs and
Yeah.
how we value them as a culture, not just the administrators there, because yes, they should do more. Yes, he may not have needed to see some of those things, but as a community, are we supporting HBCUs? Are we sending our children to HBCUs? How big of a value are we putting
Yeah.
on that college system? You know what I mean?
It's unfortunate, as a graduate of a HBCU, I was extremely intentional in my decision that that's the direction I wanted to go. I have 6 Black boys and come from Northern California, just like they mama did. And they haven't expressed a huge amount of interest. Now, I think that if I had, from the time that they were younger, made sure every time that I went back to my reunions or went back for homecoming that I took 1 or 2 of them occasionally, maybe they would have a different fire and appreciation for. And so I think that if we want to value this system that was intentionally had to be created for Black folks, because Black folks were not allowed at PWIs, primarily white institutions. There was not an option of integration. So these HBCUs were created just for us. And so, one, there is a value there. There's a proposition that we have to say, this is where we've come from. And so many of us, I will tell you this statistic, I lean on this statistic for, like, I can stand on it and I know that I would be safe and healthy. I think the number is 87% of Black doctors in this country and around the world from America graduated from an HBCU as their undergrad. 87%. I want to say the numbers are like 76% for Black lawyers went to a historically Black college or university for their undergrad. Now, maybe they went to a PWI for their medical degree or for their JD, but those are high numbers.
It is. Wow.
And their foundation, the foundation of that. So let's think about the low percentage of Black doctors and Black lawyers that there are around this country, right?
Yep.
And then think about how, like, they are so needed on a high level. And that they're the change makers that go into these medical systems and these law offices and change the narrative.
Yeah.
With that being said, they are also the first ones to be like, y'all using me, because my HBCU prepared me to compete. Remember, so my mom as a kid put me in PWIs from K to 8. And that was what she was like, I'm putting you in with white folks so that you can learn how to compete. That's it. I didn't put you there to make friends. Don't nobody got to be important to you. You are strictly there to compete. From then on, I know that you will be of the mind that you can compete with anybody. And so you can be in any situation. So when we ended up at Burbank.
Great segue.
Right? So, but that's just like a PWI. Someone was telling me the other day that they had visited Grant High School, which is they've done a good job with creating this atmosphere that is like an HBCU, right?
True. Very true.
So if we are instilling those kind of values into our babies at a young age, maybe they will want to be in those spaces. And if we are going to put them into those spaces, we also have to hold those spaces accountable to having good living conditions, because that's one of the issues that Ed Reed is having, is that the living conditions are here not good here. My now 24-year-old Bethune-Cookman was one of the colleges that was on his top 3 because he didn't get into nowhere else. And so we was like, well, you got into Bethune-Cookman, you got into these HBCUs, you need to pick one, because that's where we going. You're going somewhere. But I will say that because it is one of the more popular, and Florida being a more warmer state, it gets a lot more traffic. But those funds need to go to making sure that there is good food. Like Spelman is the number 1 HBCU and has been for like decades now, from when I was a student at Spelman. I want to say in the last 3 to 5 years, students have been complaining about the mess hall, about, the cafeteria, and that there being substandard. So we have to consider these things. Do students have an ability to get their self-care and their mental health taken? Do students, like Spelman a couple of years ago made a decision that they were going to take transgender students, because
Mm.
if you were transgender and you were female, you were now female, we want to welcome you into the one family of womanhood, right? Out of respect, out of, this is how we are respecting each other in community. um
Mhm.
and so we have to make sure that we are providing resources for. And so I can't, fault. I'm vocal, so I already know I'm coming into any space and I'm be like, ooh wee,
Yeah.
y'all
Yeah.
need to fix this. You want me to
Yeah.
come here?
Yep.
Oh,
And these
I
kids
can't
are
work in these
protesting.
conditions.
The
Yeah.
kids are protesting. The kids are upset that he was fired. So I don't
Yeah.
know if they decided to not go with him because they were because of the embarrassment.
Yeah.
Maybe the videos he did, maybe he could have just went to them directly and spoke. But sometimes we need to realize when we do things privately, nothing happens. Sometimes if you put somebody's feet to the fire and show the world, okay, now
Yeah.
we got to comment. Now our
Yes.
PR department got to get involved. That can be a bigger change agent at times. But here's the thing:
Absolutely.
all of us on social media, and Sonia just made a great point about her HBCU experience, but maybe not exposing the kids to it in a way that could have been everybody to think like that. So if you
Right.
love what Dion did at Jackson State, you got a problem with Dion, you got a problem with what Ed Reed is doing. These schools need money too,
They
but they
need
need
money too.
more students as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And then you teach your kid about our history and who we are so they can go to this school and then in return want to help us out. Because
Hmm.
I'm not sure how much that happens at HBCUs where a, a student may go there but then disconnect from that same community, which isn't what we need. You know what I mean? Because they don't
Right.
have as much money as some of the PWIs. And Ed Reed, being a former student of Miami University,
Yeah.
maybe he had unrealistic expectations.
Right.
I'm not sure, but this is like if you want to support HBCUs and you think it's important, realize everything matters. Like I always
Absolutely.
say, where
Absolutely.
you decide to send your kid, if your kid is a 4-star athlete or 5-star athlete, and you're not even considered at HBCU, I don't want to see you online complaining about Dion switching schools.
No, not at all. Not at
You feel
all.
good?
And I would also say that the majority of HBCU graduates that I know, especially here from California, we are very active in our alumni association. So
Mm.
not only do we go back for events like homecomings and reunions and things like that, we give to the endowment. Like I can't tell you the number of times that it's like the class of this is versus the class of this, and the competition send $5 more in. And imagine if everybody in your class sent $5 more in, could you beat that other class?
Yeah.
So that's common, just natural, like competition with one another. But it keeps those doors open, and it's super important. I just think that there's so much value and worth in HBCUs
Mhm.
that we have to be the ones to say, let me make sure that my dollars, if I'm going to donate anywhere, that's where I'm donating to.
Yep. And I know some ex students of HBCUs, the ones I know personally that I've
Mhm.
had the opportunity of meeting, really grounded brothers who appreciate Black culture. They
Yeah.
have a great sense of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But imagine if the parents of Black students got into the mentality that we're going to look at HBCUs first. And
Right.
then, because what you want to do with your life may not be at one of the HBCUs. I get it.
Right.
But we're going to prioritize it and say, we look in there first. We're going to look at all, however many of them it is. We're going to look at them first. And then
Yeah.
we'll kind of go down the list. So if we want things to kind of shine and look a particular way, everybody has to participate. We
Everybody
can't
has to
rely on
participate.
celebrities. We can't rely on just the current alumni of HBCUs,
Right.
because I knew you would have that story of a generation of you guys who said, nah, I'm gonna give what I got. I'm gonna
Right.
go back. You guys are very prideful. See,
Yes. Yes.
that's important.
Like to this day, I sing the Spelman hymn. To this day, when I go back for reunion, we get in our all white.
Mhm.
there is a sacredness that is a part of who I am as a woman, that is foundationally part of everything I do, that I learned my freshman year at Spelman. Now, I want to also say that there are a lot of us who get out there and they say they always name the top 5 or maybe even the top 10 HBCUs, and they forget about the hundreds of others, because they're more than just the top 10, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the problem with that is you have so many students wanting to attend a Spelman, a Morehouse, a Hampton, a Howard, Tuskegee. You want people, so many wanting to attend the big top 10, but they forget about the Bethune-Cookman. So then you don't have an alumni association who can come back and give, because the retention rate is even higher, right? Because we're not getting the students through the system to actually graduate. And so that is the endowment, is their money to keep the doors open. And if you don't have an endowment, you can't pay for dorms. You can't, the upkeep, right? Like Jackson, Mississippi, where Dion was, like they didn't have the money to build the infrastructure to make sure that the students had good water, you know, but because Dion was there and his celebrity was there, they were able to make sure that those kids had bottled water anytime that they wanted to.
See, so we need to be aware of that, man. So if we're gonna let's not be too outraged. Sometimes we all have a part to play. If you are a young father or a young mother, and a part of the reason why we do these kind of stories is so you can see the injustice and see that, you know what, I ain't gotta wait on nobody.
Right.
Let me start infusing the information, because the pridefulness I've seen in people from HBCUs, I'm not sure if you can get that at a PWI.
You cannot. I would say you cannot.
So we need to be aware of that. Now,
I went to a PWI for my upper grad. I went to San Francisco State, and I was like, this is just not college. But I was grown by then. I had a kid or two, and, I'm trying to just get my master's and get up out of here, taking night classes here and there. But I will say, no. My kids have been at PWIs. I've had 2 of them, sent them to California Baptist University down in San Bernardino, down in Southern Cal. Ooh, he was like, I'm not ready. I can't be here with all these white folks, mama. And then he had an experience. He was recruited to wrestle for this college. And so he got a full scholarship. And he got there, and on his dorm, on the wing of his dorm, somebody banged on his door at 1:00 in the morning and like banged and said, "Nigga, go home."
Man, come on now. That's why we cannot talk about this kind of stuff enough. White folks, you're still teaching your kids that bullshit.
Right.
This is the reality. We have a lot of young people who still practice the same type of racist tropes that would get us hung back in the day.
Right.
And I'm happy, though, that your son sees it and doesn't like it, like doesn't internalize it and think it's him. And think he got to change how he
struggled
talks.
for a while, though. He struggled for a while, because when you grow up in neighborhoods like Oakland and like Meadowview and Oak Park and Del Paso Heights, sometimes it's like, if I make it out of here, I'm never coming back, right? So you forget those roots. I was like that to a certain degree when I first graduated. I was like, I ain't coming back here. Ain't no way I'm coming back here. The hood has not been good to me. But the reality of it is, I had an epiphany maybe about 10 years ago. I was like, the hood is still good to me. Like, I got hood homies who would be like, I see you, sis. I be seeing you on the news. How can I support you? What your kids, And so the hood has been good to me in that respect. I still, I can make a phone call if I needed to. Not saying that that's the response, but you know what I mean? That's called community. Yes. That people know and care about you. My classmates from the class of 89, we get together every 5 to 10 years and we have a reunion. And I will say, coming out of Burbank in 89, that was a tough time period. And the majority of us are okay. The majority of us have had jobs, own homes, are doing okay. We didn't fit into that stereotype. So it's a dual thing that we got to realize when we talk about, do I send my kids here or do I send my kids there? My kids, I put them, they grew up as cupcakes. And I tell them all the time, y'all are not street smart. I'm going to need you to stop playing like y'all know some real gangsters. Yeah, we tell you about the stories. We tell you about the story, but you ain't seen that shit. My sister and I I can remember a street fight. These girls wanted to jump my sister and I. We was new on the block. We stood back to back because it was like 5 or 6 of them. And we was like, don't let your back not touch my back. And
There
we
we
will
go.
go, right? And we was like, this. We didn't get our asses whooped.
There you go. It is a
My
difference.
kids don't know that life.
Yeah. Yep.
My kids have grown up and not had fights at school. What that happened at? I don't know too many hood kids that can graduate high school and say, I never had a fight.
Yeah. No, that's real talk.
I was a nerd. I was a straight A student. I had fights in school, elementary, middle school, and high school. Yes.
Yep. But it's good we get to show them something different. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's beautiful. Now, final story of the day,
Yeah.
Sonia. January 7th, a 29-year-old brother named Tyre Nichols was driving home. He worked at FedEx, so he was like at his lunch break, he would go home to his mom's house where he lived. He's on his way home. Police stop him for a reckless driving charge, is what they say.
That's what they said.
Now, information is still coming out. The video hasn't been released yet. They're still releasing information about different things that could have taken place, but the end result is 5 black police officers beat this man to death. The incident happened on January 7th. By January 10th, he was deceased from his injuries. And Sonia, of course, we're tired of seeing this. Yeah. And we've had all of these conversations about the history of police and how it was pretty much designed to treat our community a particular way. Yeah. Like we understand this. But what we also have to realize is sometimes the loyalty of the black officers is to the blue side of things. It's to their fellow police officers, opposed to it being their community. So when you see 5 officers, because they're black and we're going to talk about that, but 5 officers pull somebody over on a reckless driving charge, and the end result is death. Like, how do we digest this?
We don't. We have to heal from this. Like, this is another trauma. This is another lashing on our backs. This is another potential mental break that our community could potentially experience. This could and truly be another time and I'm only saying if it weren't cold outside across this country, people would be in the streets protesting, right?
Yeah.
But it's reminiscent of the black officers in Baltimore when Freddie Gray was thrown in the back of that van, right? Yep. To me, it's very reminiscent of, I get triggered when I think about black officers. First off, let me just say this, and this might sound controversial to some folks, but think of it in this regard. Law enforcement agencies are agencies. If you work for an agency and there are 1,000 officers that work for that agency, and if only 10 of them are corrupt, bad, disgusting human beings, if the other 990 don't do a damn thing about it, they got 1,000 bad cops within that agency.
Yep.
Right? Cops are not a race. Cops are blue. There is a blue code of protection. There is a shield. There is a wall. There is a police union. There is a code of conduct. And I can continue when it comes to supporting and protecting these son of a guns.
Yeah, because when you look at the treatment, so if someone is pulled over for reckless driving, and I heard the brother ran, right? But needing 5 individuals to commandeer someone, and then you beat him to this extent. These are individuals at this point, they're trying to show all of us we're above the law.
Yes.
We can literally do what the fuck we want. Now, these cops were organized crime detectives.
Yeah.
Listen what I say. These 5 police officers were organized crime detectives. Y'all got to give me some more information. Was this young brother on your list? Was he a part of some mafioso organization?
I can imagine it. Like, I can literally imagine working. I can remember I had a job that wasn't too far from home, and I hated to use the bathroom at the job. And so I would get in the car and I would race home. And I probably was recklessly driving, trying to get home to go pee a lot of times. And to have that as a looming thought that if I get pulled over because I'm recklessly driving, that I could potentially have not come home alive to my mama, my daddy, that's crazy.
And these
That's
cops,
crazy.
they need to be treated like regular individuals.
Yeah.
You go to jail, you get the full extent of the law thrown at your ass, and then there is no form of protective custody. They should treat these cops like outliers, like y'all just because the police department is saying all the right things. We've
Right.
seen the video. This was horrible. We don't
They
participate
have
in
a black
whatever they
woman
did.
police chief,
Yeah.
she's out
See?
there. Yep.
And then you get these black women police chiefs or black men. They have to stand up and talk about these incidents. And
That's trauma
sometimes,
too.
see, because sometimes they can't say exactly what they want, or they may be
Absolutely.
on our side, but there's a whole process they have to go through. So maybe at some point, America and politicians have to realize the police system, everything about that structure needs to be revamped.
Absolutely.
Everything about it, the hiring process, everything.
Yes, absolutely. The other thing about it that pisses me off to no end, though, is the double standard. The standard of if it's a black cop, they going after you.
They were fired immediately.
These officers have been charged. They are currently incarcerated.
Yeah.
All 5 of them. They've all been fired. They have no protection from this police department because remember I said, if it's 1,000 cops within your organization and 990 don't do nothing about the 10 bad ones, all 1,000 of y'all are bad. So now you got 990 who have gone against these 5.
And that's why we need to, as black folks, everything we talk about on this show and everything me and you be doing personally, Sonia, there needs to be an allegiance with your goddamn race, man. Absolutely. First, you can do a good job in any profession, but you should look at your brother like your brother, because these white folks will throw you under the bus. Yes. And these brothers got charged quick as hell. They didn't get transferred. See that? No, we ain't transferring your black ass nowhere. Right. Get out of here.
Duty. And Terrence Mercado and Jared Robinette, who were here in Sac City, who killed Stephon Clark and his grandma, they got desk duty for a year.
Yep.
Until Sac City was concerned about their mental health, not about the mental health of the black community.
There we go. And all these cops have been cops for more than 20 years.
Yeah.
So typically in their structure, that means something.
Absolutely.
That means we're gonna protect you. But nah, y'all killed a nigga and y'all look like him. We'll deal with you later on. You know what I mean? Y'all go ahead and handle that yourself.
Absolutely. I think I posted on my Twitter page today that just because you are black within an organization that doesn't respect black folks and you harm people who look like you doesn't mean that they will protect you too.
See, and that's what some black folks never seem to realize, Sonia. If you encounter a racist white person, a white person who isn't just,
right,
and they see you down in your community, they see you have no allegiance for your community, that's a disrespectful. They're not gonna respect you.
No.
You see, they're not gonna respect you if they know you more on their side than your own damn people.
Absolutely.
And hopefully these black cops see, but black or white, they need to get the full extent of the law through at them, because it's 2023. And because here, we always need to preference things. The police, a lot of individuals in this country have problems with police of all races, but nothing like us.
Right.
We have to be honest about this. We don't see them harming white folks, Asian folks even. See? Because people come at me sometime about, man, you just talking about them doing it to black folks. Show me the video. Show me
the evidence. Where's the data?
You see? So it's not happening. So we have to understand these police patrols and how the police departments were started. It was a very nefarious nature, and they still operate the same way. But
absolutely,
it's so much money and power included. These police unions control a lot of things.
A lot of things.
they're a gang. For all
they're gang.
They're a very big gang with a lot of money, and they all have guns.
Yes.
So
and more than guns, like military weapons.
There we go. So they got the backing of the government.
Yeah,
You see? So it's us
absolutely.
going against the government. This is why some form of unity needs to take place.
Yeah,
We have a lot of different sections of this society that are aimed at kind of disenfranchising us.
yeah.
And this was just another example of that. You know what I mean?
I will tell, I'm very honest about when I say to folks, F the police. Like, the police is gonna be my last resort to call if a
Hmm.
crime has been committed, because they come after the crime has been committed, right?
Yeah.
They
They
are they
don't
are not
stop crime.
preventers of
No,
crime. They are
not at all.
90% of crime happens and then the cops are called.
Yes.
Let's be very clear about that. And think about that's a high percentage. They don't just luck up on, a drug deal and that. They don't luck
No.
up on a bank robbery. They don't luck up on a rape.
Nope.
They get called out after the fact. Here's the problem. They only solve, typically, most departments around this country, about less than 30% of crime that they go out to. So
Damn.
they are called 90% of the time after crime is committed, and their failure rate, let's be very real about this. This is a failure rate you only solve at a high level 30% of the crimes that are out there. That is like a F minus minus minus.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a lot
in
of
the
crimes
world of
unsolved.
school, if
Yeah.
I'm giving a grade, that's a F. You got 30% on this test. That's an F minus minus, right?
That's a F minus minus minus.
Right?
And so can you be considered doing your job if you solving
No.
30% of crimes? You know
So
what I mean?
we spend on most city and county budgets, over 50 to 60, sometimes 70% of city and county budgets go to law enforcement. That's a
Ain't
lot of
that
our
something?
taxpayer dollars. So the bulk of our money is going to an organization that gets the bulk of their interactions with community 90% of the time after the fact. And they only have a solving rate or a success rate in impacting the community 30% or less. We
This is
have to reevaluate the value of said community. I worked for Sac City Unified School District over at Kennedy High School for several years, running their criminal justice academy.
hmm.
Our business partner was the Sacramento Police Department. The goal of the Sacramento Police Department was to hopefully, out of my program, get students who were prepared to become recruits into the Sacramento Police Department, and they wouldn't have to go through the rigorous exam. Because of who I am, my percentage rate was a failure. I was a F with minus, because of my 5 years that I was there, only 2 of my students went into the police department, and each year I had 100 students.
Hmm.
So that's a really, really low percentage. But what I will also tell you is that the majority of the cops who worked in those programs with the kids like that I had,
Mhm.
it was the black and brown cops, because they didn't want to be out on the streets.
Mm.
They wanted to impact kids in a positive way. What I also will tell you is I heard story after story of cops, black, brown, poor, wanting to go into this profession thinking that they're going to change the game. I'm going to do
Mm.
something that's going to impact my community. And they leave very disgruntled, angry, PTSD
Mm.
suffering individuals who harm people because they get accustomed to the psychology of policing. And the psychology of policing is a matter of control. I got to control these bodies.
I got to control these bodies. And then that sounds so much like a lot of professions, Sonia,
Yeah.
where you go into it thinking, I'm a help. I'm going to change the world. And you
Right.
realize this institution ain't shit.
Right.
It's too big and too corrupt.
Right.
Now I got to get on TV and talk about what I just had to read and the report I just had to write. I'm in the middle of the shit. This is why I think the spook that's set by the door ideology is so powerful.
It's very powerful.
Because you can do that and be like, I'm going to work here. Yeah, what should we do, boss? Then go home and be like, come on now, y'all. I didn't learn something. This is what we going to do on a... You can still figure out a way, but it has to be deflating.
Yes.
To build yourself up to want to do something.
So that was my little way of saying, okay, I'm gonna see if I can get some recruits out of my babies because they trusted me.
Yeah, and I understand that concept of because we have to examine before we go here. how do we view black police officers?
Right.
What's the expectation level of a black cop? Because me
Yeah.
being me, I'm thinking you black, we on the same page. Get your money, follow the rules, but come on now.
Right.
Come on now. Real quick story, just kind of a side note. There are stores around me that are owned by Indians, right?
Uh-huh.
So there's like a liquor store, and right next to that store is like a restaurant, like an Indian restaurant. The guy from the Indian restaurant came into the store one day. I'm at the counter buying my food or buying my, buying everything I wanted. He stopped serving me. The Indian guy at the restaurant gave him money to get change. They are
talking in their language, probably.
It's them first.
Everybody.
He wasn't rude to me. Neither one of them was rude to me. But once he came, he opened his register, gave him change. That level of communication where I got your back. I don't care about all these other people.
Yep.
I don't have to harm other races of people, but my race comes first. Why are black people so goddamn scared to say I'm black, I'm proud, but I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm a hooper, I'm a carpenter, I work at McDonald's? That shit is secondary.
Yeah.
I'm tired of us getting in situations where the law in the country gotta show you a nigga.
Right.
You don't know by now. And then a lot of them get in situations. Now you want to call the Muslims,
right?
now you want to call a Reverend Sharpton and all these
things. Right. Well, I am very glad that my friend and comrade in this work, that Ben Crump, is on the case for Tyre Nichols. I'm very glad that he is pushing the point. I also wanted to mention, and I know that we always pick a few topics to talk about, but last week we talked about Florida's governor and the AP class. So the AP, the College Board, has come out with what this AP Ethnic Studies class is. Supposedly it's going to be offered at 60 high school campuses. We don't even know if any of them are in Florida, but we do know that in Florida, so Governor DeSantis, that they have a Japanese history and culture AP class. They have a German history and culture class. They have a Chinese history and culture class. They have a European in Florida. So you can't convince me, Mr. Governor of Florida, that that's not racism if you say that Black folks can't have an ethnic studies program, because there's a threat when you teach the truth about Black history.
There we go. And that's why I love us, because last week we talked about it. Sometimes you just got to put that energy out there. And with social media, this is the beautiful part about where we at now in today's society. When we see things we don't like from a grassroots level, we speak on it. Yes. We put the energy out there, and sometimes it actually sparks a fire. Absolutely. And it gets everything moving. Because I seen the interview with Benjamin Crump. I'll give the brother props. Like, he is saying, nah, if we don't get this class popping, these three Black boys suing all y'all.
We about to sue.
We suing all y'all.
We suing all y'all. And here's the thing: there's precedent, because the state of Arizona 7 years ago went through the same thing when they didn't want to offer ethnic studies. But you guess what? 2023 ethnic studies is now offered in the state of Arizona because they had to. They lost the case. There's precedent. So Governor DeSantis is going to lose. They're going to waste the taxpayer dollars of those who live in Florida. Why are we wasting our time with racists, electing racists into positions that are never going to protect us? Like, Florida has a decent sized Black population.
They need that class. And speaking truth to power, look, there's a lot of things about our society, a lot of things we've had to go through that may not have changed as fast as we wanted them to if we just shut the hell up and do what we were told. Sometimes you got to step out of there. That's why I love what we do, Sonia, because it reverberates. People hear. Sometimes certain Black folks, all they need is a little push in the back.
Just a little bit.
Like, come on now. This is right. Because a lot of this be logical. Like, I'm tired of people approaching this like it isn't just logic. You should know about your history, but I know why y'all don't want to teach us. You know what I mean?
So I know why they don't want us to know.
Exactly.
So I just wrote an article to tie this all together. I just wrote an article, and the title of the article is Black, and this is going to ruffle some feathers, but Black History Month perpetuates whiteness. And here are my 3 reasons why. They regurgitate the same heroes. They teach us about the same heroes year after year after year.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not a pride that we can grow if we only learning about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and whoever else, right?
Yep. Yep.
So if we're limited to the amount of knowledge that we're given with respects to who we are as a people, that's going to hinder our ability to grow in pride. Secondarily, Carter G. Woodson, when he started Negro History Week,
Yep.
part of his goal was to bring together American history with Black history. If we were able to do that back in back in the day when he first had this idea, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Mm-hmm.
But my third reason that I'm just like, y'all caricaturize us, like we turn into these cartoon characters. Like you can look at Dr. King. I love the mission. I love the nonviolence. I love the fact that he showed up and showed out. I love his inspiration. I love the fact that I just love that he showed up.
Mm-hmm.
But he's now a character.
Mm-hmm.
He's not humanized.
Yep.
When he was on those lines, those marches, he was public enemy number 1. He had been arrested almost 40 times. They wanted him dead. He knew that he was not going to live a long life. And now he's a character.
Yep. The same people who had a hand in what happened to the brother are
Right.
now telling us separate this month. And a fourth thing I was at while you were saying that, Black History Month at times relaxes the Negro mind.
Yes.
I ain't gotta learn about nobody in August.
Culture. We always focus on let's have a potluck. We always focus on let's have a party. Let's have a step show.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
It relaxes the Negro mind, and you begin waiting for February to get fed some figures. I've always tried to talk about different people. I know Ryan Coogler and I forgot the other brother name want to do a movie about Mansa Musa.
I'm
exciting.
Here for it.
I was like, about time.
They don't want that.
I'm like, come on now, let's get to it. You see what I'm saying? So
they didn't want them. It took forever for the movie on Harriet to come out. So these are things that they don't want. They don't want the masses to know that this is our history.
Yep. But we got to keep speaking truth to power, keep talking to our people about it, because like I said, there's a lot of us that are on the fence. A lot of us just ain't took the time. I speak to 60-year-olds sometimes who don't know some of the stuff I know about history. So I say, you know what? Let's just share knowledge. Let's figure it out so we can use that as strength to get to where we need to go. You feel me? So this has been another episode, the Melanated Convo podcast. My sister, Sonia Williams Lewis. This was great, man. I love having my sister here. Sonia, tell everybody about a scribe success, educational consulting.
You know, the goal at the end of the day is to make sure the next generation doesn't have to deal with or heal from racialized trauma in the workplace. And I lean on the ignorance of governors like Florida, right? Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, if we know at the public school level that you are not going to get this knowledge, only a certain percent of folks are going to go to college, but everybody to a certain degree is going to go into the workplace. Mm-hmm. So you have people at different levels of understanding of what this society has done to people of color, particularly Black folks. Mm-hmm. And so when they come into these workplaces, they don't know what to do with the information that they have. And I am just a proponent of, if we give people an equal playing field, if we have shared language and values, that is going to improve the morale, that is going to improve the production, that is going to generate more revenue for an organization. You would be dumb as hell not to address equity, particularly around Black representation in your organization in this day and age. And so that's what we do. We help organizations realize your best talent is right in front of you, and you need to pay them accordingly. You need to treat them accordingly. You need to leave a global footprint in that community that says we value us being here together in community.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And that's, the type of business that you have is so needed. And I know, being a sister who's college educated, there's different types of jobs that you can have, that wouldn't be so geared towards liberating Black folks. But I appreciate that, because all of the people throughout history that we admire, they took a risk. They had to sacrifice some things so we can find a better seat at our own table that we're trying to create here. So that's important. This is your brother Harrison. Follow me on Instagram, Melanated Convo 100. All the digital listeners, like the video, leave a comment. I appreciate you guys as well. We do this thing every Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Me and my sister Sonia Williams Lewis, Melanated Convo Podcast.